Under the faint glow of the headlights, the snowflakes sparkled like thousands of tiny crystals falling from the pitch-black night sky. The wind howled through the cracks of the car's window, carrying wild, whisper-like sounds from the frozen wilderness, a place where humanity seemed nothing more than temporary intruders. Johnny pressed the accelerator cautiously, the tires screeching against the ice-covered road. The outside world appeared frozen in a white haze, where the outlines of the mountains and forests were reduced to shadowy phantoms. Johnny's breath formed thin, misty clouds, blending with the feeble warmth of the car's heater. His heart felt heavy as his eyes inadvertently rested on a small photo taped to the dashboard. It was a memory from long ago, capturing Laura, the woman he loved, laughing brightly amidst a field of lavender. That memory, sweet as it was, had become the source of his deepest pain. He remembered how Laura used to tease him, calling him her stubborn companion, who always protected her from every challenge. Yet now, it was he who needed guidance. The truck continued crawling up the winding slope, each turn holding the promise of hidden perils. Johnny's hands gripped the wheel tightly, the tension palpable in his fingers. But tonight, it wasn't just the icy road that troubled him. There was something strange in the air, a silence too profound, as if the entire forest was holding its breath, anticipating something unknown. Suddenly, the headlights illuminated large shapes ahead. Johnny hit the brakes, causing the truck to jolt violently. Before him stood a herd of wild horses, silently blocking the road. Each horse, though dusted with snow, radiated an otherworldly majesty. But Johnny's gaze was drawn to the black horse at the center. It stood taller than the others, its jet-black coat gleaming under the dim light, and its eyes, deep and luminous, held an eerie mix of familiarity and mystery. Johnny swallowed hard, an instinct warning him against rash actions. He reached for the horn but froze, mesmerized by the black horse's gaze. There was something in those eyes that compelled him to listen, to pay attention. He turned off the engine, plunging the scene into complete silence, broken only by the wind whistling through the barren trees. A faint, feeble sound emerged from the distance, a whimper, like a fragile plea for help, piercing through the snowy veil. Johnny leaned out, straining to listen. The black horse turned its head toward the sound, then looked back at Johnny, its gaze urging him onward. Taking a deep breath, Johnny donned his thick coat and opened the door. Cold wind rushed in like a mini tempest, biting into his skin and making each step a challenge. The herd parted as though understanding his purpose, creating a path. The black horse moved slowly ahead, each of its steps deliberate, as if leading the way. Johnny followed, his boots sinking into the soft snow, yet his resolve grew stronger with every stride. Approaching the source of the sound, Johnny saw a sight that made his throat tighten. A small, frail foal lay curled up in the snow. Its shelter had collapsed, and its weak breaths mingled with the thin mist of the cold. The foal's wide, round eyes glistened with a mix of fear and despair. Johnny knelt beside the foal, his calloused hand gently resting on its trembling body. "Oh God," he whispered, feeling its fragile life slipping away. He shrugged off his coat, wrapping it around the foal, and carefully lifted it into his arms. Its weight, though slight, reminded him of life's fragility in the face of such harsh nature. The black horse stood nearby, lowering its head, its eyes watching Johnny's every move. At that moment, Johnny felt an inexplicable connection, as if the horse understood his thoughts completely. Its eyes reminded him of Laura's, gentle yet resolute, always urging him to do the right thing. With the foal securely wrapped in his coat, Johnny made his way back to the truck. The wind roared louder as if testing his determination. After placing the foal in the truck's bed, the black horse approached, its gaze conveying silent gratitude. "I'll take care of it," Johnny murmured, his voice breaking with emotion. The black horse lifted its head and let out a resounding whinny, a sound that felt like both a farewell and a thank you. resonating deeply within Johnny. The herd vanished into the darkness like ghosts of the wilderness, leaving the black horse lingering for a moment, gazing at Johnny one last time before disappearing into the shadows. Back in the truck, Johnny cranked the heater to its maximum. Warmth gradually filled the cabin, but his heart raced, not from the cold, but from the strange, profound encounter he had just experienced. His eyes drifted to Laura's photo, drawn to her familiar smile. "You'd understand, Laura," he whispered. "I'm trying." The foal's eyes opened wide at the sound of Johnny's deep, soothing voice, as though the tone carried a magical comfort, easing the pain that racked its small body. Johnny's voice wasn't just a sound. It felt like a promise, a message that it wouldn't have to endure alone. In the faint light of dawn, Johnny stood beside the small creature, forming a living portrait of resilience and compassion intertwined. In a fleeting moment, Johnny caught a glimpse of a spark of life flickering in its listless eyes, a sight that clenched his heart. He couldn't help but think of Laura, his late companion. The image of Laura, with her steadfast smile and resolute gaze, surfaced vividly in his mind. Her indomitable spirit and refusal to yield had etched themselves deeply into Johnny's memory, now reflected in the foal's determined eyes. A wave of emotion overwhelmed him, as if Laura were watching, cheering him on from a distant place. Without hesitation, Johnny opened the first aid kit and pulled out a sterile cloth. Gently, he cleaned the dirt and dried blood from the foal's face and neck with deliberate, loving movements. Each touch of its coarse fur made him acutely aware of the pain it must have endured. Despite his calloused hands, weathered by years of wandering, his touch was tender enough not to cause further distress. The foal was severely dehydrated, its thin coat damp with sweat and icy cold. Yet, when Johnny placed his hand on its chest to check, its heartbeat remained strong and steady. "A true fighter," Johnny murmured, recalling the days when Laura battled cancer without losing her optimism. Her eyes always shone brightly, as if the fierce vitality within her refused to fade, even as her body succumbed to illness. Johnny retrieved a small bottle of electrolyte solution from his backpack, a staple for his long journeys. Pouring a few precious drops into the bottle cap, he carefully dripped the liquid into the foal's mouth. At first, the little creature only licked tentatively, but within seconds, it began drinking eagerly, as if rediscovering life itself. Each sip seemed like a healing elixir, gradually restoring the fading vitality in its frail body. "Take it slow. We've got time," Johnny whispered, his voice a reassurance not only for the foal but also for himself, a reminder that all things require patience and perseverance. The first rays of dawn pierced through the thin morning mist, gently illuminating the truck parked at a desolate roadside stop. Johnny had stayed awake all night, his tired eyes never leaving the small foal curled up in his thick jacket. Every breath it took, faint but steady, fueled Johnny's resolve. The foal's condition had stabilized, but he knew they needed supplies to continue their journey. "Let's see what we can find here," he murmured, carefully lifting the foal out of the truck. The foal's eyes appeared less fearful, though its body still trembled beneath the thin blanket. The roadside stop was nothing more than an old wooden shack with a time-worn gas pump out front. Peeling paint adorned the walls, and the creaking wooden door swayed with every gust of wind, adding to the forlorn atmosphere. Johnny smelled the dampness and noticed cobwebs in the corners. Despite the bleak surroundings, he clung to the hope of finding something useful. As Johnny pushed open the door, a bell jingled, drawing Maria, the shopkeeper, from behind the counter. Her eyes widened with curiosity as she saw him holding a foal. Inside, the warm glow of a ceiling lamp contrasted starkly with the desolation outside, creating a cozy ambiance. "Johnny Depp, what on earth are you holding?" Maria asked, her tone a mix of surprise and concern. Johnny managed a faint smile, tinged with exhaustion. "They needed my help," he replied, offering no further explanation. Maria nodded, her gaze soft and understanding. Nothing is too strange around here, Johnny. Sometimes the oddest things are the most right. Without delay, Maria began gathering essentials: a small bottle of milk, a few soft blankets, and a hot water bottle. Laura would have done the same, she murmured, setting the items on the counter. Her hands trembled slightly as she mentioned Laura, whose memory lingered deeply in both their lives. She always said you had the kindest heart she'd ever known. Maria's words tightened Johnny's chest, stirring an ache that never truly left him. It was as if he could hear Laura's laughter echoing from the past, a beautiful yet painful memory. Johnny carefully prepared the milk and poured it into a small bottle, his hands trembling as he held it near the foal's mouth. The little one began to drink, small but eager gulps. Maria watched quietly beside him. "You know," she said, pulling out a small electric heating pad from behind the counter. "I used this to save animals back when Harry was alive. It'll help keep the little one warm." Johnny thanked her in his deep, gentle voice. He wrapped the foal snugly in a blanket and placed it carefully in the truck bed. Before leaving, he took one last look at the old gas station, a place that had offered him and the foal a glimmer of hope. Maria placed a hand on his arm, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right, Johnny?" He nodded, determination shining in his gaze. "I'm fine. We've got a long journey ahead." As the truck rolled away, Johnny glanced at the foal curled up in the back. Orion, the name Johnny had chosen for it, now seemed more at ease. Its breathing was steady, its eyes half closed, and its small body appeared fully relaxed. "Think you can handle life on the road, little one?" Johnny asked. A faint smile broke across his weathered face, the first in weeks, when the foal responded with a soft sigh, as if in agreement. Morning sunlight streamed through the truck's windows, casting shimmering patterns on the seat. That warm glow seemed to soothe Johnny, filling him with a newfound sense of hope. Johnny's truck, though old and worn, was sturdy and carried them far away from the heavy memories of the past, embarking on a new journey. The road ahead was long, but Johnny was in no hurry. He savored every rhythm of the journey, the gentle hum of tires rolling over the rugged dirt path, blending with the soft whispers of the wind rustling through the trees on either side. The morning air was fragrant with the scent of dew-soaked grass and the faint sweetness of wildflowers, reminding Johnny that life still held simple, precious moments worth cherishing. As the sun climbed higher, its pale golden light spreading everywhere, Johnny decided to stop at an open clearing by a small stream. Stepping out of the truck, he pulled a bale of hay from the truck bed. Placing it in front of Orion, he smiled and said, "Time to eat, Orion. You need your strength for the road ahead." Orion opened his wife, luminous eyes that sparkled in the sunlight. The young horse lowered his head and began to nibble at the hay slowly, his small, alert ears twitching as though listening to every word Johnny spoke. Johnny sat nearby, watching the horse eat with tender eyes. He began to speak, filling the silence with his stories, a habit he had developed to ease the solitude. Laura always dreamed of journeys like this, he mused, his voice contemplative, his gaze fixed on the distant hills. She wanted to explore every corner of the world, the wildflower fields, the snow-capped mountains, and the dirt roads leading to places no one's ever been. But now, I think she'd be happy knowing we're keeping her dream alive. Orion seemed to understand Johnny's unspoken feelings. The horse lifted his head, his soft lips moving slightly as if trying to say something. The gesture made Johnny smile, a smile filled with empathy and gratitude. In every moment spent with Orion, Johnny felt as if a part of Laura was still there, beside him. Days turned into weeks, and Orion grew stronger. His small frame began to show defined muscles, and his once awkward steps became steady on the challenging trails. Johnny felt a swelling pride watching Orion's transformation, as if the journey had not only changed him but also given the wild colt a new lease on life. A week later, they reached a small town. Wooden houses dotted the valley, surrounded by lush green fields. Johnny sought out the local veterinary clinic, where Dr. Linda, an older woman with sharp yet kind eyes, greeted them. "You found this horse in the woods?" Dr. Linda asked, her keen gaze studying Orion standing quietly in the truck bed. "Yes. I couldn't leave him behind," Johnny replied firmly. "He's family." The sincerity in Johnny's voice made Dr. Linda pause momentarily. She nodded and gently examined Orion. "This little one is a northern wild horse," she said after a thorough checkup. "He was about 3 weeks old when you found him. Honestly, I doubted anyone could manage to care for a wild colt, but I can see your determination. Orion is all I have left," Johnny said, his tone resolute but filled with emotion. His words left Dr. Linda thoughtful. She offered no further remarks, only a nod, and shared some practical advice. Back on the road, Johnny carried the encouragement from Dr. Linda with him. In the days that followed, the truck bed became not only their shelter but also Orion's unique classroom. Johnny taught the young horse to recognize dangers, sudden noises, unusual movements. He also familiarized Orion with strangers they met along the way, helping him stay calm in any situation. "You're smarter than I thought, little guy," Johnny said one day, stroking the lightning-shaped white mark on Orion's forehead. The colt responded by nuzzling Johnny's hand gently, as if in gratitude. These small but meaningful moments made Johnny's life feel lighter. Evenings by the campfire, Johnny often spoke to Orion about Laura. "She used to say that every sunset was a promise," he murmured, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "A promise that tomorrow will be better, and now, seeing you, I believe it." Their journey continued, with ever-changing landscapes, from vast plains to majestic mountains. Each day brought new challenges but also new opportunities for Johnny and Orion to forge a unique bond. In Johnny's heart, the young horse was not just a companion, but a beacon of hope, and the reason he found the strength to keep moving forward. 3 months later, Johnny brought Orion back to where they first met, the secluded mountain path, now alive with the vibrant greenery of spring. Wildflowers bloomed along the roadside, swaying gently in the breeze. Birds chirped in the distance, their song a soothing melody blending into the serene atmosphere. The golden light of the setting sun filtered through the trees, painting the path in hues of warm amber. As the sun dipped lower, they unexpectedly came across a herd of wild horses emerging from the forest. A thin veil of mist lingered over the grassy fields, reflecting the light like a silken silver sheet. Leading the herd was a magnificent black stallion, exuding the regal aura of a king. Each deliberate step it took was poised and commanding, its sleek black coat glowing with fiery orange hues under the evening sun, giving it an almost ethereal presence. Orion stood in the truck bed, ears perked up in alertness, yet his eyes revealed an undeniable curiosity. The little horse showed no sign of fear but seemed captivated by the majestic presence of the black horse. Johnny stopped the truck, opened the door, and stepped out, carefully maintaining enough distance to avoid startling the herd. His footsteps were soft and cautious, making no sound to disturb the serene atmosphere. Orion let out a soft neigh, a gentle yet resonant sound that echoed through the stillness. His eyes gleamed brightly as the truck's headlights reflected off the black horse. Two creatures, one large and one small, stood facing each other, their gazes seemingly bridging the distance between them. Johnny stood silently nearby, watching this magical moment unfold. It was as if an invisible bond was forming between Orion and the black horse, a wordless communication filled with profound meaning. The black horse nodded slightly, perhaps as a greeting or an acknowledgement. The simple gesture exuded nobility and dignity. Then it turned and led the herd into the darkness of the forest. The sound of hoofbeats gradually faded, leaving behind a quiet void that resonated deeply within Johnny's soul. He stood still, his heart overflowing with indescribable emotion. "We just met a king, Orion," he whispered, smiling. His eyes sparkled with pride and reverence. From that day forward, Johnny and Orion were no longer solitary souls. They became a family, a perfect match brought together by fate. Treacherous roads, freezing nights, and scorching days were no longer insurmountable challenges. Johnny knew that as long as he had Orion, he would never be alone. Together they overcame countless obstacles, forging a bond that transcended the relationship between man and animal. A bond built on friendship, loyalty, and profound understanding. With his sharp instincts, Orion became not only a faithful companion but also a vigilant protector. Many times it was Orion's keen senses that saved them from dangerous accidents on the road. Thanks to Johnny's resourcefulness and Orion's instincts, they were able to assist numerous stranded drivers on perilous routes. Each time Johnny's pride in his small companion grew. He would gently stroke Orion's mane and whisper words of gratitude. One night, as Johnny and Orion rested under a sky illuminated by the dancing lights of the aurora, the world seemed to pause in the mystical beauty of nature. Hues of green, purple, and gold swirl across the heavens, reflecting off the endless expanse of snow. A gentle breeze carried the crisp scent of pine. Orion, the loyal horse, stood motionless under the sky, his bright eyes reflecting the ethereal colors. Johnny, his silver hair and face etched with the lines of time, sat on a log near a small fire. He smiled softly, breaking the tranquil silence. "Laura would say that sometimes the best family is what God sends when you least expect it," he said, his gaze resting on Orion, the steadfast companion who never left his side. Orion seemed to understand Johnny's words. He moved closer, gently resting his head on Johnny's knee. Johnny stroked Orion's mane tenderly, his eyes filled with love. Orion's eyes that had witnessed countless miles and stories, shone with intelligence and unwavering loyalty. They reflected the aurora's light as if carrying the essence of the night sky within them. At that moment, the man and the horse seemed to become one, sharing the same breath and emotions. In the quiet of the night, only the sound of the wind and the warm heartbeat of an extraordinary family remained. On their familiar truck, Johnny and Orion had traversed countless roads, from the dusty trails of the Wild West to snow-covered paths in the high mountains. Orion, the faithful horse, always stood securely in the specially crafted truck bed Johnny had painstakingly built years ago. The sturdy wooden structure, meticulously designed to accommodate Orion's size and strength, bore the marks of Johnny's hard work, each detail perfected by his calloused hands. On the dashboard, an old photograph of Laura remained, a faded yet cherished reminder of her spirit. The picture captured a young woman with soft hair, a gentle smile, and lively eyes as if she were watching over every moment of Johnny's life. Beside it were snapshots of Johnny and Orion's adventures, sunny mornings in endless deserts, and cold nights sheltering beneath snow-capped peaks. Each image told the story of a journey not just of exploration but of the heart, of loss, hope, and faith. Johnny often referred to Laura's photograph as if to keep her alive in his memories. "Laura, I once thought rescuing Orion was a miracle, a way God helped me cope with losing you, but now I believe it was you who guided that wild horse herd to me," he whispered, his voice laden with emotion. "You knew exactly what I needed." Johnny never forgot the fateful day he met Orion. It was a freezing winter day when he stumbled upon a herd of wild horses during a snowstorm. Snow fell thickly, the wind howled fiercely, and the cold was so biting that even his breath froze mid-air. Amid this harsh scene, Orion stood out with his majestic demeanor and sleek coat, glistening despite being covered in snow. The intelligent, bright eyes of the large horse seemed to recognize Johnny as his savior. As Johnny approached, Orion showed no fear. Instead, His gaze conveyed a strong sense of trust. Summoning all his strength, Johnny managed to pull the horse out of the snow and guide him to a safe shelter. In the early days of caring for Orion, Johnny learned that the connection between humans and animals was nothing short of miraculous. Orion was not just an intelligent horse, but also a deeply understanding companion. When Johnny spoke, Orion would often stand still and listen, his small ears twitching as though comprehending every word. Over time, Johnny realized that Orion was not just a rescued animal, but an indispensable part of his life. They shared not only journeys, but also dreams and sorrows. Years later, Johnny began to understand that the herd of wild horses was not only there to call Orion back to his origins, but also to remind him that Orion belonged to two worlds, wild and human. Every spring, Johnny and Orion visited a special valley where the herd would wait. Nestled deep in the northern mountains, the valley was surrounded by towering cliffs and crisscrossed by babbling streams. When the sunset painted the sky a fiery red, the entire scene became as magical as an oil painting. The shimmering light filtered through the crevices in the rocks, blending with the rustling wind and the echoing neighbors of the herd, creating a vibrant symphony of nature. One day, as Johnny and Orion parked on a mountainside, they saw the herd waiting under the golden sunset. Johnny glanced at Orion and smiled. "You want to bid them a proper farewell, don't you?" He didn't need an answer, as Orion's eyes said it all. The horse stepped forward, his movements slow but deliberate. Each gentle touch of Orion's muzzle with the other horses seemed like a heartfelt goodbye and thank you. Then, for the first time in his life, Orion neighed, a powerful and clear sound that echoed throughout the valley. The herd responded in unison, creating a magnificent chorus, a declaration of the eternal bond between nature and humanity. Johnny stood silently, tears streaming down his face as he watched. At that moment, he understood that Orion had chosen him, chosen the meaningful journey beside his human companion, even though his heart would always belong to the wild world from which he had come. Back in the truck, Johnny wiped his tears and looked at a photo of Laura. "He chose us, Laura, just like you chose me years ago," he said, his voice warm yet tinged with emotion. That night, as Johnny drove through a gentle snowfall, he felt a profound presence. In the rearview mirror, he glimpsed Laura's silhouette, her gentle smile a silent encouragement. Her eyes seemed to tell him he was never alone, that love and memories would always live on in his journeys ahead. Orion curled up on his custom-designed straw bed in the truck's trailer, drifting into dreams of his two families, the wild herd that had saved him and the human friend who had given him a meaningful life. The truck's steady hum blended with the sound of the wind blowing through the mountains. It is said that on quiet nights in the northern mountains, if you listen carefully, you can still hear the distant neighbors of a horse. It is the story of the driver and his loyal steed, two souls bridging the gap between the wild and the human world with love and trust. Johnny and Orion, in their journey, not only conquered roads but also touched the hearts of everyone who heard their tale. What do you think about today's story? It is a deeply emotional journey between Johnny and Orion, the connection between humanity and nature, and the enduring love of cherished memories. Can you feel the magic in those seemingly simple yet profoundly meaningful moments? Share your thoughts about friendship, loyalty, or the memories you hold dear in your heart. Perhaps, somewhere in our lives, we all have an Orion, a companion who brings meaning and healing. Don't forget to like and share this story if it inspires you, and follow us to stay tuned for more heartwarming tales.